Welcome to another episode of the Lords of Consciousness podcast, videocast. I am your host, Clint Culberson, and today's an exciting day. We had an earlier interview with Melanie Fisher, and we just posted our interview with Jesse Boudreau, who is a permaculturist out of New Mexico, and he's an incredible human being. He's running his PDC Permaculture Design Certification course this May 22nd through June 2nd. So check it out if it's something that you're looking to gain new skills in your life that you didn't have before, and understanding the natural world. They're going to be going over plant medicines and beekeeping and permaculture design in terms of understanding the contouring of the earth and optimizing the water, the rainwater that falls, and growing the most abundant food that we possibly can right in our backyard. So if you're looking to do something like that, this is for you. This episode is also brought to you by Organic Galaxy, our good friend, and I think Nick even knows him too, Tobias Lavley's company, Organic Galaxy, which is up to some really amazing stuff. I mean, he's doing consulting work for farms now and helping them rehabilitate their soils through the great power of fungus. And he's also giving some seminars in Colorado. I can't remember the dates, forgive me, but check it out on his website, Organic Galaxy. And he's on Facebook and Instagram, the whole deal. So check him out. Today, I'm really excited for this episode because I'm joined by my friend Nick Irvin, and Nick and I know each other from the Terrence McKenna group, like many of my friends from the Facebook world. And he is a flat earther. I guess I hate labels. I mean, he's a human being who goes by
geocentric proponent, maybe.
There you go. But I found out you were, and I love the way you I've been really confused by it, to be honest with you. I've watched a lot of stuff, and it seems like there's more. Most of the videos are just shitting on the other guy as opposed to actually giving some evidence of like what the hell you're talking about. And so I've followed a lot of the stuff that you've been writing on Facebook, and I was like, this is such an emotional topic. I will say, anyone watching this, I am not a flat earther, but to be honest with you, I can't prove that the earth is round. So I mean, other than, the evidence that's been given forth, but after I do admit that, man, there's a big, giant, fat conspiracy that's gone on this planet, and not everything is what it seems, and the rabbit hole does go deep. And I mean, all the evidence that I've been, reading about over the many years is pointing in that direction. So the idea that flat earth is a possibility it's not out of the realm of possibility for me. And to say that, like NASA has lied to us and things like that, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Is it likely? I don't know. I mean, maybe you make that choice, but I wanted to have Nick on because I want to be able to really discuss what the flat earth is, what that model is, where we've been, why it's been kept from us. If it is true, why has it been kept from us? Where does the history of it coming from? Like where did this theory come from? People think it's a psyop, for crying out loud, to confuse everybody. And so I want to talk about that with Nick, and then just what is the nature of this reality then, and just give him the opportunity to discuss it without attacking him, because I'm not smart enough to even come at you scientifically. So if other people watching this want to come after you afterwards, great. I mean, Nick is honestly an open-minded guy who would be happy to, at least have a discussion. So that's what this is about, and I wanted to just ask the questions to you. So for those who don't understand what it is, try not to listen to this with emotions. If you're feeling emotional, I'm telling you that's a sign that there's probably some bullshit going on in your world. Because who gives a shit if Nick is a flat earther and if people believe that? At the end of the day, it's within their right to do that. So let's just, if it's McKenna says, and I say this in every damn podcast now, the truth can withstand any test you put it up against. So if the truth is that the earth is round, then fucking Nick, you better change your mind, bro. If the evidence compiles that you need to change your mind, then I hope you do. But I hope other people, if more and more evidence comes into your life that you feel like there is something else going on and maybe there's another model, be open-minded enough to allow the truth to come forward. No emotions. If you feel emotions, that's probably a bad sign. So, Nick, I'm sorry I had to give such a giant I wanted to like set the parameters for this discussion because, some people get so cuckoo bird crazy about this and it's absolutely insane. So, dude, I want you to kind of like take the floor and describing, before we get into like the history of it or even the controllers and the NAS fake, all the, just what is the nature of this planet? And we sell whatever the nature of it is, celebrate it. It's beautiful, man. This planet is fucking awesome. Either whether it's flat or round, it's awesome. So what is the beauty of this planet that you see from a flat Earth model?
Well, I agree. Just going, since you already brought up Terrence McKenna and his views, there's a quote that I really like that maybe we should preface it by, where he says something along the lines of, whatever the case, we seem to be trapped in some sort of masterpiece, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is, it's unique, it's absurd, it's something that will always challenge your mind and yourself for growth. Yep. Is the experience and the nature here. And a lot of that actually goes out the window when you start saying, oh, no, it's just ordinary. There was a fluke at the beginning and, this explosion created, these things. And we're just in this, void vacuum where there's no meaning or whatever. And so that's where you can lose that idea. So it's good to preface it with that. But what I don't really know what your question was. What is the nature of this?
Yeah, what is it? What does it look like? What is it? I mean, what does it mean that there's a flat Earth? I mean, what does it mean? I mean, there is that part of everyone that goes, "Well, you'd fall off the edge." What does that look like? What's underneath us? What is this outer space even? Go ahead, dream, man, or just tell me what you think.
Yeah, so people, they always go to this image that's been reinforced. It's being reinforced as much as like the ball or the globe Earth has been in your brain of a flat, edge on the Earth, and then there's ships going over and the water spilling out. But even back in the day and whatnot, nobody ever really thought there was a comical edge that you would fall over. They, the Greeks especially, thought that, when they had a geocentric kind of model, they imagined an infinite ocean that the Earth was in. So there wasn't an edge. It just went on forever. And that could be what we're talking about now, because we're not talking about something where there is an edge. First of all, in the modern argument, it's kind of eloquent how Antarctica is taken from a continent and it's more seen as a wraparound. It wraps around like a wall, like of ice, around. If you look up the flat Earth map or the azimuthal equidistant map, you'll see that. And so really it's kind of like a squashed globe. Like if you just took a globe and managed to, flatten it out to perfect proportions and then Antarctica went around it. That would be it. And that's what we're dealing with. And there's, most of us have spent most of our time learning the other way, the other model, that we're on a ball and wondering what outer space is and filling our heads with all these facts. So we don't have, all the answers, but it comes down to what you can confirm yourself with your own observations. And so as far as a lot of people take the Bible as reference too, because it actually has an astounding number of correlations with describing a flat and motionless Earth. And for example, in Genesis, there's the waters being separated from above and below, and then the earth being created on that. And so it's not something like a disk floating in space or thin as a pancake. Clearly, you can dig down in the ground, and clearly there's mountains and hills and valleys and rivers. So nobody's saying it's flat like a pancake or that there's, not like, but and then in the Bible, going back to that, when it describes, the earth is flat and has a face like a clock, it actually says it's built on pillars and whatnot. And a lot of people who are into conspiracies, they'll go, no, the earth isn't flat, it's hollow. Well, in a lot of cases, it's mutually inclusive if you look at older ancient models, they kind of suspected that there were great deep caverns below a flat Earth,
Right.
and not that you just fall into a void like you'd fall off the edge. That's just as comical. So they assumed hollows in the ground to a certain point, and they also assume a dome or a covering above the Earth, or called the firmament in the religious circles. And that actually has validity with what NASA says about the Van Allen radiation belts. And they admit that there's trouble getting human astronauts or pilots of this craft past this point. But what's interesting is the moon is way past the Van Allen radiation belts. And so they've kind of been caught discrediting their own lies about the moon landing by saying, oh, we can't really get past this. And then saying, oh, but we've been to the moon. And so, but people catch those things, on YouTube and whatnot.
So what do the stars exist? Are there other planets? Are there other solar systems? I mean, under the model that we understand.
Well, people will often, that's one thing they go to with like the eclipse and the shadow of the moon. They could say, oh, well, the Earth is flat, but all the other planets are around. Like, okay, good logic. But that's not what we're saying. We claim that the NASA's photos are fake, the NASA's pictures of Earth, and they are, and they'll admit that in their CGI composites that we were talking about. But you've got to understand that all the other pictures that they feed you and graphics and imagery are just as flawed and just as kind of cobbled together. And you can find subliminal messages on the other planets like you can find on the Earth. Like, someone showed before that, there's they write sex out, the word sex in the clouds. And then that's on our picture of the blue marble. And then there's an image of Pluto on Pluto, if you look closely. And what you have to understand is that kind of is reminiscent of when I was young and somebody was showing me pictures online. They're like, hey, did you know that Disney puts a bunch of, weird messages and sex things in their movies? And, like if you look at one example, The Little Mermaid, there's like a dildo on the cover of that. And, in The Lion King, there's like a woman's ass in the silhouette.
Yeah.
And so Disney and people know Disney do that with their children's movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you look at NASA, you see kind of the same thing, because NASA is really an organization that was set up by Walt Disney and Werner von Braun and Jack Parsons, who was a famous occultist and disciple of Aleister Crowley. Those are kind of the founders of NASA. And interesting, talking about the firmament, Werner von Braun actually has a Bible scripture, a Psalms kind of thing, and it goes back to a verse talking about the firmament and stuff. And so this rocket science left a verse about the firmament on his tomb, just one of those little flat Earth clues that will lead you into that. But, so you have to kind of say that the planets, the images of them that we've seen from NASA are not real. And so then you can look at, okay, well, what does somebody who's not involved in NASA, what are they seeing? And I've looked through telescopes before, and, there's people with those fancy cameras out these days, and they get real close, and they look like some sort of undulating light. I don't know. It's like kind of like you're looking at a distorted reflection through water when you look at these amateur images. And when I remember looking through some telescopes before, one of my friends had a great telescope, and seeing this, and I can confirm that, like, I saw Saturn not spherical, but like it's more of like a silhouette and a ring and all this. And I just assumed, well, when you get something like they have at NASA or whatever, you can see much closer and kind of perceive the 3D image. But you can't, and now that there's modern technology in the hands of like everyday people who are not belonging to these groups, you can find this, and some people will say, the Earth is flat, but all the other planets are round. Like you're stupid. But they don't realize that we're saying that the conspiracy extends that far to the other planets, and that you can see them with the camera and there was something else, like, and the whole thing's a
So-
logical fallacy anyways, as if the planets all have to conform to a certain rule.
Right.
Like Saturn has rings, the Earth doesn't have a ring. The Earth has what, there's
Right.
exceptions to the rule. Can you not imagine that perhaps we might live in an infinite realm or plane, and then there are spherical planets too? Why not? But it doesn't seem that's the case, because it doesn't seem like the planets are their spherical bodies. At least not in the debate that we're having.
So you think that? What do you think that they actually are then? Reflections, you said, potentially.
That's one theory.
Yeah.
I just think they're lights in the sky. Really, that's as far as I know. But could be anything. There's people who are in like the secret space program and stuff.
Yeah.
And they've been talking to flat earthers recently, and that's really interesting. But you see, there's the idea of like a Stargate technology and traveling to other realms like that, and like realms, that word. And so I think that there could be, planes or holes in the sky that you can get through, or some sort of hyperdimensional warp where you can end up on, Mars essentially, but maybe it wouldn't be a planet, but maybe it's some sort of realm or plane or alternate reality that we're seeing light from, and you can go there and it's just all stacked on top of us. Could be
this it's funny because this idea of the flat earth actually really goes along well with the recent show on HBO called Westworld. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's basically like an area where rich people can come and they go to this reality, this like big, it's like its own like world. And they have AI robots that are they look like human beings. So, and you can mess around with them. It's like Wild West land, the whole deal. But the robots start, and every day, their memory gets wiped and then they start over again. But the robots start evolving and start realizing, like, some of them actually, their memory doesn't get wiped, and they start like having flashbacks, and they start waking up to this, like, reality that, holy shit, we're in a fucking video game here, and we're being like raped and, shot with guns and killed and all, like, just whatever these rich people come and do to them. They can do anything they want. Yeah. And it's kind of like, it is kind of a trip. Okay. So I'm describing this idea of the show Westworld, and how it's like, they wake up to the fact that they're living in this like globe, and that they're just, pawns in a game of a higher species, in a sense. And man, I'll be honest with you,
a lot of the Truman Show, which is a popular reference point for flat earthers.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that basically a much more beautiful and complex model of the Truman Show, in a way?
Yeah.
That the world really does revolve around us, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. And when you realize, like, you're in an enclosed system, like you were talking about, the robots, the AI realize they're in an enclosed system, or Truman, and he's saying, of course, the first thing you want to know is what's outside of it. And that's why that idea is dangerous, that you live in an enclosed system, and there's more beyond it, possibly.
Yeah. And well, so what do you think then would be the agenda behind, showing an infinite model, that the galaxy is infinite, and there's, we're just a sand, like, sands on a sea, in a sense, of worlds that exist out there?
Well, that's actually an extension of like this model that has not always been around. It's kind of the latest addition to it. Mm-hmm. That, it's infinite, and like, for the idea that there's other suns out there and stuff, that wasn't added on till like past Copernicus and Galileo with Bruno and all this. And so it's just been, more and more stitched to it, and that the idea that the universe is like creating and going from this causal, it's just a mess. I don't really know what, but more important, how they've changed the idea of the sun in people's minds. Mm-hmm. The sun represents a lot of things to us subliminally and just subconsciously, and just, think about it. Like, a lot of the first religions of the world were basically just sun worship, and we see the sun and we think life and mm-hmm. good and day, and all of the heat comes, and so we associate these things in our mind with, like yang energy, yin and yang. We associate all of these aspects of that polarity onto the sun. And so by taking, it's masculine and it's intellect, and then you've got the moon, which in human minds, represents, the other side of the polarity. It's feminine, and it's intuitive. And so what they've really done kind of with our psyche and our psychology is they've taken our idea of the intellect and the masculine side of it in the universe, and they've made that much bigger and the center. And so that's why I think we kind of have a world, a male dominator, to use the McKenna's phrase, or a satanic, if you will, stepping over each other's system, is because we've taken the intellect and the qualities that are intrinsic to the left side of the brain, and in our worldviews, we've changed that to be the center and the biggest and most powerful piece of it, and really took the feminine and kind of put it on its, in the back, and it's only reflecting the light, and it's so much smaller, and it's just a rock, and so that does something to the occult psychology of a mind.
God, yeah, it does. You're tripping me out with that one, man. So does in the flat Earth model, then, does the moon generate its own light?
Yeah, that's what most people are saying, or it seems to be the thing. I mean, it's just like I said, you get this model in like occult spheres and circles and all this, where they have the Earth, and there's always two pillars, like I was talking about, the Joaquin and the Boaz, that are always equally represented. And so basically in the flat Earth model, and you can go out and confirm quite a bit of this, it's just polar opposites, exactly made correctly, and just everything. Yeah, so it's got its own light, and the light is cool and not locally illuminated. And
can you explain again? I should have asked you this earlier. So can you just explain then the flat Earth model on like how far away the sun and the moon are, and how they work exactly, and that they're much closer than we think? And can you just
they're in our atmosphere. Yeah, sure, they're in our atmosphere, and that's a big thing. Okay, so people want to bring up, don't you know that the Earth's not flat? Aristophanes proved it, 2,000 years ago or whatever. And if you actually sit down and think about the two sticks in the ground and all this, if the sun is a lot closer, because they were basically just gauging the distance of the sun from what they thought they knew. If the sun is a lot closer and smaller, you can get that same experiment. And so then you have to determine, well, what are some evidences of the sun and its location. And if you look at the crepuscular rays and you use simple geometry, chase them back to their point of origin, it's, they tell us it's 93 million miles away. And I think it can be readily seen by, that method as just a couple thousand miles away. And so, they circle around us like hands on a clock, really. And they're still pretty large and big, but they're within our atmosphere, essentially within the dome or the firmament then. Right. And the sun is locally illuminating, it's not. So people say, why isn't the Earth just completely, covered in light? Why is there night at all? It's because it's, locally illuminating the spot below it.
And what is the North Pole the center?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Okay. So then again, I guess then the moon and the sun would be circling around the North Pole. Is that correct? Am I visioning it correctly?
Yeah, pretty much. Or along the equator line, wherever that is, and then it's also moving up and down and coming different angles. So it's that's what would create the season. It's kind of a corkscrew effect. Yeah, if you want visual demonstration. Yeah.
So what about the different moons? In terms of the shadowing of the moon, where does that come from?
Some people do theorize like an anti-moon to explain a few things away, and that goes back to the eclipse question. But all I know is that there have been recorded, throughout, recent even history, eclipses where the sun is visible in the sky while the moon is being eclipsed. Okay. So that kind of just goes to show it's not the shadow of the Earth that we see on the moon. So it could be a shadow, or it could just be the way the moon is set up to produce its own light, in quarters and bits and just going around. But
that would be
or
a
it could
trip.
be something more like that. What was that?
That would be a trip. That would be a trip.
Yeah. If it just has different phases of lighting itself up, maybe there's no shadow. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't gone out there and observed that too much, but there's a lot of funny questions about that.
Beyond if I understand correctly, in the flat Earth model, as you go up, into the, those we've had, you guys, you believe that like those amateur photography has gone up and captured where it starts getting dark, right? So where do we eventually hit a ceiling of some sort, or isn't there like a ceiling of water or something like that as you go up?
Yeah. That's the dome or the firmament that the stars are fixed in, apparently, according to the Bible. And you can only go up so far. And there's maybe you've seen a video of this rocket that's sort of like it seems to hit a barrier of some sort, and it almost seems like water that it's in. And so that's the same thing that NASA would refer to as the Van Allen radiation belts.
Right. Sometimes I do trip out at the idea that like the stars that I'm seeing sometimes are hundreds of millions of light years of different, like some like crazy amounts. Okay, like insane. Like even Orion's belt. Take Orion's belt. Like there's those three stars have vastly different distances between each other, but they kind of appear to be the same size, pretty much. Like I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
One's a little brighter than the other, but sometimes I just as from a logic test, like, and I'm sure scientifically you could prove why I see that light, but just from a logic test, it is kind of strange that they appear to be the same size. And it's funny.
Yeah, you think about it like Star Wars. They have two moons, and one's bigger than the other and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're really looking at all these other planets and spherical bodies, I know that they're far away and how this all worked, but maybe there'd be a couple that were closer, that we could just hop onto. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, and I will say, like, from if you were just born into this world, the flat Earth model does. It makes the most sense. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, if you didn't know any better, you would just think that the Earth, the sun, and the moon are literally the same size, because they literally are, from your perspective. And you would kind of see it as that, like you look on the horizon of the ocean and it is flat. So in many ways, the globe Earth is actually the one that has to prove itself more in many ways, more than, there has to be a story. And I'm not saying that they haven't. They very well may have, but there is a story. It does require more faith, because how many people on this planet have actually been outside of the planet and been able to see it? So at the end of the day, you are trusting someone else on that.
Yeah, that's the first thing that we ever teach our kids, is essentially during their formative years, is doubt your senses and trust authority and the version of reality they give to you. Mm-hmm. Because our senses tell us, it's what we see, a realm, a flat plane, as far as we know, until we get to an edge or go up really high.
Exactly.
If we weren't ever told it was a ball and then we went up in an airplane, would we see a curve? It's a question you can't honestly answer because you were told that you were a ball. And then people get so mad. We say the first thing they taught you when you went into school is that you're on a spinning ball. But really what it is it's your parents probably taught you that before your first day ever of kindergarten. And you've probably, taught that to your children. And it's not even something that you actively teach them. It's just something that it's an image they would see on all their toys. And then they'd find a globe in the house, and it's reinforced by all that. And so people can't really understand that this sort of control can be handed down without knowledge. People, your parents weren't in on a conspiracy when they told you that the Earth was, they were told that it was. And so it goes back and back and back until the times when the church was out, stringing people up by their ankles if they didn't, agree with them.
So let's get a little into the history. Why was this model changed, and what is the agenda behind doing it? Why don't they want us to know it's flat? Well, I mean, what is this? What's the point?
Well, because then you know that you're in an enclosed system, and it's consciously reading you, and it takes the whole aspect of intelligent design out of your worldview. Now, if you want to get into religious implications or whatever, we can do that. But just the fact that intelligent design is enclosed, like we could be on a shelf in an alien's, science lab or something, just in a little like snow globe type thing. When you start asking questions like that about reality, you become a lot more dangerous than when you just accept face value. Okay, it's nothing but a vacuum and a void out there, and there's no point or whatever. And so you also start to see
it does. You have to admit, I mean, anyone listening, you have to admit that changes the reality of even the way you think. An enclosed system to an infinitely open system, I mean, it does change things. I mean, you might, if we do come to
because what's behind the wall there.
Yeah, exactly. So man, and maybe and in many ways I can see how that might keep us from looking for our captors in a sense. You know what I mean?
Or even realizing that we're in a cage.
Exactly.
Or whatever you want
to
call it, a cage.
Why are we in an enclosed system?
They just want you to not, ask those questions, focus on producing more material and consuming more material goods, and not asking these questions about reality and living your experience like that. And so it really, like, people will ask, why does it matter? And they think it's going to give them something that will allow them to accumulate more wealth, or will change, the fact that they don't like their boss at their job or whatever. But if you're interested in the big questions that have always been looming over humanity, such as like, who are we, where are we, why are we here, what is the meaning of life, then it's very important to you if you're seeking after those answers, or they're important to your experience as a human.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is something that really does matter, and we have the right to know. At the end of the day, we have the right to know, and we have the right to know if someone's been lying to us on an epic scale. I mean, why don't we just? It would be nice to be able to in a sense put NASA on trial in a way, to like just to. What do you, if the flat earthers are full of shit, then let's just be out in the open right now and talk about it.
Yeah, turn the Hubble around and show us the Earth in real time in 3D. And I'm talking about with clouds. Don't forget to put the clouds in, and don't forget to put the little satellites everywhere that are out there. Do that for us. And
that's a good point, man.
Real image.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
The fact that the Earth is flat, then they must be hiding something else with fakery, whether it's the Earth is a lot larger than we thought, and the equator is really Antarctica is really just like around the equator, and there's something else behind there. There's more land or something, and which is what Admiral Byrd, the guy who is popular in Hollow Earth, and because he apparently flew his plane. This military guy who's basically a real life Indiana Jones. He went back to Antarctica, and he said, I think there is more land, and it's full of oil and all these fields. And so they built a system that basically runs on oil. So, of course, they'd want to hide that. And, people think, well, just go to Antarctica then. But they don't realize there's the Antarctic Treaty, which is like the only treaty in the history of the world that all the nations agree on and they uphold. And they all collaborate to keep us out of Antarctica. You can't go there for private exploration. They also collaborate to feed us these fake images with their space programs. So it's funny how national borders and politics kind of don't matter when you get to these things, disguising this nature of this reality. They are all willing to work with each other 100% cooperatively on that, even if they bicker and fight, over other things. They're still willing to control their citizenry in the same way.
I will say, from a conspiracy point of view, the flat Earth model actually does fit within, like, it does interlock with a lot of the other stuff. When you talk about Zionism to, the Illuminati to the whole thing, the central banking system, it does have like a connection, just in terms of a point of control. Okay, I mean, if that's the name of the game, I can definitely see that perspective from a flat earther. I'm not smart enough from the science level to discredit either way, But I can definitely see from just like a logical point of view, like I could see why a round Earth model actually, you could actually control people more from that perspective. Especially when they think that it's just limitless. If they, like you said, I think if it really was, people understood that it was an enclosed system, that it really would, people would start asking many more questions. And
also, it breeds the idea of a moral kind of relativism, because all of a sudden, you know, down is relative to you, down on the ball, and up is relative to you. But then when you're flat, it's up is up, down is down. And so the whole idea of a relative experience and existence comes from the idea that, you know, it's the Big Bang and it's a ball and all this. And so people think, you know, whatever's right for me is right and whatever is wrong for me is wrong, because, you know, it's all just relative to where we are, but we're all on the same place and we're all on the same level of ground. And so we really need to start building a consensus reality. And the way to do that is, like you were saying, there's all these dominoes of the New World Order that are starting to fall over. And we can get on a consensus reality where we're not divided by religion and political leanings. And a lot of people have realized that the shape of the Earth is the last domino in that line. And, you know, there couldn't be one behind it. And so, you know, we got people pushing on all these different dominoes, but we should just go back to the last one, because then they all fall over. So people are realizing that, and they're starting to shove on it, and there's you know, some pressure now on these agencies, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing it with NASA. I mean, I definitely think that even if you're a round Earth, you know, thinker, you definitely have to wonder, like, there's just parts of the whole NASA story that are very strange, you know, especially with the defunding of it right after we go to the moon. It's just, oh, well, we're no longer interested. And we just are told that it had to do with the Cold War, and, well, whoever got there first, and no one gave a shit, so then we didn't fund it. I don't know, man. This part of the whole story that is definitely shrouded in mystery and a lot of secrets. And I mean, I just heard something recently, and I don't know if I can't verify if it's real or not, but like something like 40 employees of NASA have died or something over the last like 2 years or some crazy shit like that. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you heard of anything like? Let me verify that. I'll look it up. But and if I do find it, I'll post it right here on this part of the video.
Like mysterious deaths kind of thing.
Yeah, like they end up dead, like NASA scientists, and like a decent amount of them. I thought it said 40. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it was like, even if it was 10, it was double digits. And I remember thinking, like, what the hell is that about, man? Because we know you end up dead in this world if you push too far or if you know too much.
But meanwhile, all the people from the Challenger expedition are still alive. Have you seen that or heard that? Some of them didn't even change their names, and they're teaching in universities and stuff.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you make of astronaut testimony? You know, are they all lying, or are they all just not understanding what they're seeing?
They may be lying. Well, it's a lot of all of this. Do they know that, like, the Earth is flat and that and they're defrauding the world? Maybe just on different levels. They, like, I guess at the bottom they probably have no idea. They probably believe 100% in the globe. It's like the guys who went to the moon. You know, they were probably told, they weren't told, you know, we have to fake a moon landing to deceive humanity about the true nature of this reality and what the moon really is. They were told, hey, this is necessary for national security in, you know, the Cold War. Like, they weren't told that. They were told, you know, this is something we have to do to get a leg up on Russia. And so there's different levels of the lies, and that's just the hierarchy of it. And so at the top, you know, maybe there's a couple who have realized that the Earth is flat or knew from initially, but down at the bottom, no, I don't think. I think they're just interpreting that data against what they've been taught to interpret, and not question. You know, they're just saying, okay, well, knowing what we know about the universe, let's see what this. And so, one of the things was NASA found 7 new planets or something a few weeks ago and a few months ago, and there are all these beautiful pictures on line about like sci-fi imagery of what these planets could look like. What NASA really found was a bunch of like dots and lines, and it looks like Morse code, and that's just the data that they can, interpret and funnel out of all this infrastructure. And then they say, okay, well, that's 7 new planets, so they're probably, round, and they look like this, and they have sun and light, blah, blah, blah. And so it really is, they just, a lot of them, they don't have, any idea of what they're interpreting, I guess.
Do you think, I mean, to get psychedelic on you, do you think, though, I'm just going to go down the rabbit hole, okay? Maybe this is just like a stoner's convo. I'm not sure. But, sure. Is it possible that there's something even in the firmament, in the sky, that is putting out, like, the stars are codes to us, and that even when we, like, even somehow, like, our scientific models could be measuring something, and they are measuring something, but it's not exactly what we think it is, and it might be part of, like, this game that we're trying to solve. And that's part of the human evolution is once they start figuring out some of these like scientific laws and they bounce them up to the, bounce them out there. And is this some sort of like, is it just like a massive trick as part of this, like, this, whatever reality we find ourselves into? And then maybe it's like meant to be this way. And maybe even like this whole flat earth idea is like part of human evolution to figure this out, or does that make sense?
Sure. Like, I don't know. You really want to get psychedelic? We could have been loaded into this reality like last week, and then everything else in our lives before that is just the backstory of our characters. And now
that's Westworld. That's Westworld. You got to watch it.
Jacked in 12 video game players, and they're like, how fast can they figure out the what's really going on and come to an awareness of this?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm willing to consider that at all in any possibility, sure.
Well, I think we need to.
I did the history, so we can't trust any of that. We got to go back to primary documents and all this, and then even doubt those.
So let's say, given unlimited funds, okay? Because let's just say, like, let's dream big. I guess the point of us even talking about this, is it this, is it that, is to just say, man, maybe, like McKenna said, the smartest among us doesn't have the foggiest idea of what this is. I'm sure there's even Illuminati people that have, they even have a limited perspective of what's going on. Maybe they don't really even understand what it's like to be like, one of the masses, it has no fucking clue, like literally have no idea even what a good heart might feel like, dude, my point is though, if you could, for the flat earth movement, let's just say that you guys all of a sudden got all the money in the world to prove or to figure it out. Okay. What would be the test that we could do? Like, how could we figure this out? I mean, how could we further this so that people could come into a better understanding of what this is? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think we'd need much money at all. I think just, our eyes and weighing that against what they tell us, go, just get in a plane and go 40,000 feet and then try and, look out and try and see if you see a curve and, make sure that everything, there's no lenses or magnification going on that could affect anything. But you can always just look at water and know that the curve is, 8 inches per mile squared or whatever. You can do the calculation. And so go to a place like in Hawaii where you can look across from one island to the next. And then say the math, okay, well, this island's this far away from here, and it should be hidden by just so many feet of curvature.
Right.
And then you look and you can see the island, and you can see that it's not hidden by curvature. That at least will confirm. It may not confirm that we live on a flat Earth, but it would confirm that our curvature is wrong. That if there is a curve much, 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 much bigger than we've thought. And why would they have not figured that out by now? That the curve was much larger. And so it's really just on the ground, simple zetetic experiments, not anything fancy. You don't need lasers. People have gone out and used lasers and balloons, but you don't really need that fancy stuff. Like I was saying, once you just, you've proven to yourself and you've seen that the images that NASA feeds you are wrong and you've cast those out, just go out and see the horizon rises to eye level and water is always flat, and that gives you everything you need to know. And it's not that simple when you first start, because you have to go through and say each individual thing. Oh, was this what I was taught, and was this wrong? And can it go out and be, replicated or is observable again? and it's not. And so it really just comes back to very, very, very simple proofs and very easy ones for, they say that boats disappear over the horizon. Go to a beach and get a telescope or binoculars or a camera with high-powered zoom, and you can zoom in on where the ship disappeared over the horizon and see it. And that's still a proof that I hear every day. The ships are disappearing over the horizon. Explain that. Well, they're not. You can go there and look and test it yourself.
Fascinating. So, oh shit, I had a question for you that we shoot. Dang it. I'm sorry. I was holding on to one because I was explain to me one more time then what I know what I was going to ask you. Forgive me. Would you not go to Antarctica and discover what the heck's down there? What if the Flat Earth Society called you, Nick, and said, "Hey dude, we got the money. You get to go check it out." Would you go? And what the hell would we find down there?
All done up in, explorer's garb and talk like a pirate for the first week there, and then go forward from there. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm interested too at like what's that the North Pole. I think there could be something funny going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
But the South Antarctica, yeah, I would totally just hop right in there. I think that's what we need to do. Somebody was talking like, once this hits really big, let's just get everybody and get in a boat and your uncle's sailboat or whatever, and just everybody go at once. They can't stop us all and see what's beyond there. Is there an edge? Is there more? Is there other civilizations? Is there a dome that you can, knock your, knock on?
Is it Atlantis even? I've heard the theories that could be even where Atlantis is.
Yeah,
I mean, we had on Brad Olson, who is the author of the book Future Esoteric, and in that book he talks about how, this is real shit. But he talks about how there was people that were trying to traverse Antarctica on cross country skiing, and a bunch of black helicopters came and took them away. Like, nah, you're not allowed to go any further. Then they made them stop. They got them on the helicopter and left, and they said it was like government kind of people that told them that they were going in areas they weren't allowed to.
To do that. Who says you can't go, to Antarctica?
Right.
There's nothing there that you're not allowed to see or do or why should they be patrolling that? But yeah,
it's a trip. I mean, I think for sure they're hiding something. And when you see in the news of all these huge world leaders that are going down there, I mean, what the hell are they going to Antarctica for? John Kerry, like on the day of the election, was down in Antarctica. The fuck's he doing down there? I mean, who's he talking to?
A lot of people theorize that's where the Fourth Reich is. That Adolf Hitler got away and went down there, and a lot of people say that's where UFOs come from as well. And it seems like there's more and more attention in these circles around Antarctica every day. So it'll be interesting to see what comes next.
It is interesting, and I think it's at the end of the day we have to question everything. And I mean, I think this topic of the flat Earth is something that we should all explore. I mean, if you have some sort of emotional reaction to just exploring the facts, then I'm telling you, there's something there for you, and it has nothing to do with the Earth, what the fuck the Earth looks like. It has something to do with you that you're reacting quite emotionally to. That what?
Some people don't want to question it, but some people, they don't want you to question it.
Right.
They immediately assume, the thought police, and they tell you, no, that's stupid. Anyone who says this should be sterilized so that they can't reproduce.
Right.
Why do people have these sentiments where you're just asking, and people have violent belief systems, and people don't get upset over that. But then when you have just a backwards belief system like this, if you want to take it as that, they get angry, and there's no reason.
Yeah, and to be fair, you know what? There's a lot of flat earthers that throw the shit right back. So I think at the end of the day, this is heated. Yeah, and this is where it feels like a psyop to me, because at the end of the day, above all else, I do believe that we are all on the same fucking team here, and that part of this evolution is to transcend this world of duality and polarity that keeps us fighting each other over and where we feel like at the bitter end, because there's no solution to overcoming our differences, that we have to return to our monkey minds and kill each other over it. And that is the evolution that I think we're trying to get to. Even whatever the model of the earth you envision in your mind, unless, of course, you have seen it physically with your own eyes, whatever model you have, why can't someone have a different model and you still be brothers and sisters at the end of the day? I mean, at the end of the day, what the hell do any of us know? I mean, we really are trusting on the words of others and the work of others. So we have to do the work. We have to do our own homework to figure this out. And I'm not saying that we can't distrust everyone. I think most people have very good hearts and are really trying to bring forth, what they believe is true. Take Neil deGrasse Tyson, who gets a lot of shit in the flat earther movement. I don't really think that guy's some agent of evil. I think he literally believes what he's saying. I think he's operating under the model which he really believes is the real one, and that's it. I mean, if he's wrong, he's wrong. But he's our brother. He's our brother too, man. I just don't. I think there are definitely those at the top who have true, like, very, very bad intentions, and that's something different. But most of us are born in this reality, like, spinned upside down, man. I mean, imagine if you were born in some village in Afghanistan, some tribal village in Afghanistan. Good luck trying to find the reality of existence, if that's where you're born into. And all of us have it, right? At the end of the day. So we're all trying to figure this out. We're all on the same damn team. Let's stop fighting each other, for crying out loud. Anyway, Nick, finish, man. Finish. Give us your parting ways, bro. What would you want the world to know about Flat Earth that maybe they didn't know, or just to leave them with something that opens their minds and feels them, leave them empowered, actually, not feeling stupid or anything like that?
Yeah, I just want people's interest to be piqued, by this. And to not write it off as, oh, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. I could never consider that. Why can't you consider it? It's the mark of with that quote by Aristotle, of an intelligent brain to consider something before throwing it, off to the side. And it's a great mental exercise to even start digging into this stuff. It's really psychedelic notion to consider, that your reality is the exact opposite of what you've been told, or it's completely inverted, or that it's more mysterious, that, I mean, it's not something like this shouldn't be frightening to anybody if this were true. It should be invigorating because you've snapped back onto, out of the virtual reality that was created on false belief. And so, and I understand it's a controlled disclosure going on right now, and people are flipping out about, the smallest things and the biggest things, but we'll all get there where we've, let our emotions pour out and reacted to our heart's content, and we can, just have our eyes back in our heads and not looking around us, like, just get out there and observe it and experiment and do your own thing, and realize that, it's not relative exactly, but it is your experience to go out and do it.
Mm-hmm. So. Absolutely. That's awesome. That's perfect, man. I love it. Thank you, man. Nick, man,
like you said, the viewer gets to decide at the end of the day, and thank God, or we have people deciding for other people, and it's good that the viewer gets to decide at the end of the day. So don't take my words on it. Just go out and learn about it, because, like I said, I spent 20 years learning one thing, and then in the last 3 or 4 years, I've come to the conclusion that it was completely wrong.
Right.
So don't take my word, of course.
Yeah, and what I've seen in my own life is I go through a series of thinking that I've reached some ultimate truth, and then only for it to dissolve in my hands, and for it to be something even bigger and crazier, than I ever thought. So, I mean, I recently wrote a post that talked about don't shut your patent office down. The patent office of your mind, don't shut it down. It's crazy. Whatever you think right now, guess what? You're gonna have to probably let go of that and to take in even the greater reality than that. So let's just always be open to that and endlessly open to that. And if we work together, we can actually figure some shit out, because you know what? We are smart, but we're really smart together. I mean, we're talking about 7.5 billion perspectives God, if we could even just honestly share each other's perspectives in an open way, we'd probably figure it out right away. We'd probably go, holy shit, we figured it out.
Yeah, this is the first time in human history that we're doing this, and we have the ability for each person to do that with just technology and internet and the global connectedness of online communications. It's finally an opportunity to review, like, we're the first generation to review, 6,000, 10,000 or whatever till, back in time where there was some other civilization that had these technologies or something. We got to review all this information, and it's not as simple as just, well, okay, there was an explosion, and then monkeys, and then cavemen, and then tools, and then blah, blah, blah. That's what this should prove. And so if you're not going to think of it as a globe, or you're not going to think of it as a flat earth plane, just think of it as a mystery, a living mystery that might not, there might be a certain part that's a placeholder for consciousness growth that you can never truly reach. And that would have a purpose to always propel you forward, whatever reality you find yourself in.
Dude, amen, brother. That what you said there, that's ultimate right there. Thank you, Nick, man. Nick is an incredible, he writes some incredible stuff online. So check him out on Facebook. Friend request this guy. He's already friends with everyone on Facebook. So he's very well involved in the social world, the social media world, and it's call it what you will. It's more of a connection to others.
That's all happening, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you've been connected to a lot of people over the last few years, and appreciate what you're doing, man, and your perspective. So, check Nick out on Facebook. And Nick, thank you, my brother, for coming on and talking about such a delicate topic, unfortunately. But I hope that we've kind of helped just at least present it. Even me. Guess what? I was 50-50 going into this. I'm 50-50 going out of it. Like, I'm just absorbing this because until I take on further truth and light on anything, it's hard to say, like, you just totally change your opinions on things. It's like, it's an evolution, I will say that I'm even more curious about it. And I see this whole reality as a war on consciousness. I mean, this earth is who knows what maybe it's nothing we can even imagine. There's no physical matter that's touching each other. So could all potentially just be a dream world we're living in anyway. So,
and all these, these psychopaths in power, they don't really create stuff. They just invert it. So they take things and they make it the opposite. And we see that in our society. And so why wouldn't that extend further to an ideological perspective in your worldview? Why wouldn't that be corrupted by them if they've corrupted your food and your health and your education and everywhere else?
Yeah, and so at a minimum, hopefully today what we accomplished is just check it out, just to open your mind up to anything. Open your mind up to anything, because it literally could possibly be anything at this point.
Yeah, and hopefully, hope this is like the first time that I've really gone and had an hour-long discussion on somebody with video. So hopefully that comes again, and more people start doing that, and you have others man. On.
Dude, I'd love to have you on again. So we'll get you in the rotation, brother. You're a super smart dude, and there's far more to you than flat Earth. So I mean, that's just one topic.
Thank you.
In many, you're not the be all end all flat Earth guy. That's just one tiny shred of a many multi-layered, human being and soul. And Nick, you got a deep one, brother. So thank you, man.
Thank you.